Ex-Yokozuna Musashimaru, current coach Musashigawa, has written a post-tournament review for Sports Graphic Number magazine. Here are his latest assessments. First Takeru Fuji, then Onosato. What are the top rankers playing at, letting those two newbies wear the crown? You feel we no longer need a rankings chart. Onosato is getting by on size alone. He hasn't done a single difficult technique so far. Okay, I praise him for doing nothing silly and for doing the basics extremely well. But seeing the total inability of the current Ozeki to stop him, I think the Ozeki of yore would be peeved. The Kaios and Chiyotaikais, who both held the second rank for a decade or more, despite all those super strong wrestlers around them, they must be doing their nuts. To Terunofuji and Takakeisho, I say, pro sumo is no pawnbroker. You can't just try pawning your reputation every 4 months or so. It's time now to think about how you'll bow out and stick by that decision. For me, Kotosakura's not there yet. His body struggles to follow his thoughts when he tries to attack, especially his legs. He couldn't exert frontal pressure this May and spent too much time clinging on from above. If he wants Yokozuna, he must do a technical brush-up. I was not impressed with his sidestep of Shonan no Umi on day 13, and would think he himself would be inwardly cringing. But I really rated Abie this time. When I heard he'd placed his title winner's certificate in his late master's coffin, I thought, he'll be going all out for a second one, and he might just get it this time. He came up short against Onosato, but 10 wins on the third rung activates his bid for Ozeki. Now is his chance to repay his ex-master by surpassing that man's Sekiwake rank. Go on, my son. Do it for Terao. I was mystified by the call not to hand out special prizes to either Daieisho or Hiradomi. I mean, the latter beat the May champion, so why not give him outstanding performance? I love Hirado's brand of speed sumo and want him to keep going with that. It's fine if he stays a lightweight. In contrast, Shonan no Umi must grasp that sumo's not just about size. His score might have been alright, but his moves were pretty poor overall. He was ducking out of the hardest impacts and fighting too much from the side. I don't think he has much hope against the top rankers yet. He's got to be hitting much harder and fighting more direct overall. As for Takayasu, I feel a first cup is still some way away. He's good when he's not under pressure for sure. But even this time, though he trounced both Hoshoryu and Onosato, he was kind of reacting to what they did, not making them submit to his own style. In general then, I'd say that where Takeru Fuji and Onosato succeed is in keeping their sumo simple. And I want more wrestlers to be like them now. Sumo 101 is simply about striking hard and pushing. Don't forget that, everyone. Sticking with the theme of assessments then, I'd like to bring in the voice of the Yokozuna Council Chairman, who says, "It seems we have a normalization of wrestlers outside the Seiyaku ranks running away with the trophy. We now have even more need for the Yokozuna and Ozeki to rouse themselves for their tasks. If they cannot do that, the whole rankings chart risks becoming a sham." I'd felt for some time sumo generational change was somewhat creeping up, but it now takes on a rather drastic tone in the light of March and May. The young blood have really pounced on the relative inactivity of the Asanoyamas and Takakeishos over the past year. A new power has come to the fore to leapfrog Asanoyama and Takakeisho to the highest rank, I feel. I'll also bring in Coach Otowayama, who has this to say on the extended slump of his new prize pupil Kirishima. So, the trigger was this neck problem he suffered in training prior to March. At the time, it appeared he could fight on it, but in trying to do so, he put his rhythm out of joint. And once the losses started mounting up, they chipped away at his conscience, and he gradually lost his belief. The fact he failed to fulfill the Ozeki duty that drove him along ended up rather breaking him. He was almost losing himself. Unable to up his practice bout count, he ploughed himself into weight training and tried to fight on power alone. He thought that by trying a novel approach it would likely lead to sumo growth, but it seems he was badly wrong on that. The sharp reactions that made him Ozeki had all but disappeared, along with his deft sideways movements. I told him to recall his earliest sumo days, and return to that approach in terms of how he trains, interacts with others, and approaches his bouts. It was time for him to reappraise the path he'd walked thus far, and the type of sumo that brought him here. And when re-watching his older bouts alongside his newer ones, he was left aghast at the difference. So it seems he now accepts that weight work alone is not enough. He has to spend more time in that ring perfecting those sumo movements. Even more than before, I add. He's also more conscious of quality when it comes to practice bouts. Before, he was happy with numbers alone. And I myself pulled him up on that. You can't be losing that many in practice if you're going for the highest rank, I said. Rather than exposing your weak spots, you've got to make opponents believe there is no way they'll beat you for real. At present, foes are getting more confident watching you. Now, whether he sinks or whether he swims from here is really up to him. 10 July wins to regain Ozeki will be no easy task, so he's got to be positive thinking for starters. I can tell you he checked into hospital for 3 days post-injury, and is now back to light training again.